effectively open. If you have any specific questions that you would like to target to the people that you've seen speaking today, or if you have any questions that are particular to your business, now's the chance. Yeah.
Also, what's the thought process on engaging? You're obviously all in the business, or most of you are in the business of helping people like us get funded. Do you see that as an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of a founder sitting in front of potential investors and getting other people to help you in that process?
When I started my business, I pitched it to some VCs to say we're going to help entrepreneurs present their information better. And what they said to me was, we don't want to see that. We want to see how bad they really are. And that's their perspective, but from your perspective, you want to present, put your best foot forward when you're presenting to them. So potentially having some support can give you an unfair advantage in understanding how they're thinking and what they're going to be looking for. You don't want to come across as not understanding the game, I guess, and that's where an advisor can help.
In terms of the VC community in Australia, it's quite limited. I think John will admit to that, and everybody else will. And sorry.
No, it's on.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
And generally, from what I've been led to believe and seen, it's all about the pitch and the founder, because no one at that stage can tell whether the idea or the product's going to run. So they basically very much they talk about the founder. So it's all about being as prepared as you can to have the best pitch. But at the end of the day, it's just, a lot of the time the punt on putting money in your business is based on how good you perform as the founder at that early stage.
Please.
I'm sure. Marcus, so you got funding for effectively a service-based business.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you mind sharing where you got that from in the end?
Sure. It was actually from one of my staff. He decided it was something he wanted to be part of long term, and like a, I guess, traditional consulting business like a Deloitte or something like that, decided to create a partnership model, and that's the way that unfolded. I think the thing that's a bit unusual about us is, although we are a services business, we're a scalable software-based services business, and that was the kicker, I guess, in that investment proposition, was that we're not just a services company. We're a services company that has a unique capability globally in software development for delivery. And so what we can do in 4 to 6 hours typically would take about 2 to 4 weeks. And so that's where he saw the value in what we do.
So did you explore all the avenues, the angels?
No.
No. So you went to a VC and that didn't...
No, I didn't go to a VC. I wasn't really looking for money.
Oh, okay.
He came to me and said, I've got some money if you want to take it.
And is he here today?
He's back in the office working, Sarah. This is my day.
Other questions?
So your process, your involvement in all of this, so bridge of fire. So you take people through the whole process from finish to end, and then you use these guys in amongst that process, so you have partnerships with them?
We do, yes. The process in short has really come about because a lot of people come to us and say, hey, can you help raise capital? And at the beginning I was silly enough to say, oh yes, we can help with that, and then suffered some consequences of that. And so after a few goes of that, I went to say no, and people went, well, hang on, it says here you do this, or someone else told me. And what we're doing because of that, the process we have evolved from that is that we start by raising revenue. We learn that if we can't help someone raise that revenue, if we can't help tune up the marketing model, if we can't help you make some more money, then probably it's quite unlikely that even a significant amount of investment capital is going to make that for you. And it makes it a lot easier, not just for us, but to say that the only thing you ever do with us is come and fix up that part and then you go away and raise capital on your own. It's very likely it's going to be easier whether you go to the bank or whether you go to a private investor or wherever you go to raise that money, because you have now a model that is somewhat more proven. Now, nothing is ever proven in marketing, because marketing is always a, hey, what we thought was a rule today is now changed tomorrow. That's the lay of the land, but at least we've got something that is much closer to an econometric kind of model. And you will, my experience and the pitches I've been sitting in on advising and helping entrepreneurs raise cash is that often an investor will say, well, we don't believe in that number. What if this assumption holds true instead? If you can't come up with an answer like that on your feet, they're going to send you out the door pretty quickly, because they're going to go, well, you don't really know your business well enough and you haven't taken care of all these potential consequences. And so if nothing else that we do then is just making sure you've got that really mapped out before you get to the next stage. Simple.
Pose a question which probably should be paramount to today's session. And I'll throw it open to the other guys on the panel, because I help people get government grants, which is one way of getting some funding. But in reality, when you're starting a business, you generally need to have some money, and I suppose the question is, when are you best, what's the best timing to do a capital raise? And maybe perhaps Mike and Marcus could kick that off, because there's a whole variety, there's a lot of timing involved. No one's actually posed that question today. At what stage of your business are you ready, or are you best positioned and ready? Marcus's process makes you ready for a capital raise, but when's the good timing to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's very dependent on the type of business that you're involved in. And there's a difference as well between capital raising and bank funding. So let's say you wanted to start a hairdressing salon. You're generally going to need about 150,000 to get that business off the ground. You may be able to attract an investor to provide part of that funding, or alternatively you may be able to bring the bank on board. For those early stage opportunities, what we usually advise is doing a combination, to bring an investor on to get enough money to match with the bank funding, so you've got your 30% deposit that you need for that loan to leverage that up. So I'm not sure if that's the best answer, but it really does depend on the business. And we come across clients usually when they need money, so for them it's the right time to raise capital. That's how they find us.
I mean, if I was going to add to that, I'd say yes, it depends on the business, but also depends on the individual, where the individual's at. And I'll just give a few examples. So one of my clients, MJ Bale, the founder is a guy called Matt Jensen. He founded Herringbone. Has everyone heard of Herringbone?
Yep.
So MJ Bale was his second business, and he had a very clear idea of where MJ Bale wanted to be. He'd kind of done it once before, and for him, raising funds on day one was absolutely the right thing to do, because he had a track record. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he just wanted to get going. I've got another client, a client called Anton and Stanley. Has anyone heard the men's shoes? Has anyone heard of it? They're in DJ.
We need a plan for that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
There you go. Small world. The owner there is a guy called Paul. I've been talking to him for over a year now, and it's taken a year to realise that he needs to raise capital. He's put a lot of his own personal finance in, and he's got to the point where he believes in himself a lot and his model, but previously he probably hadn't, so he didn't want to go and take other people's money, but now he's ready. So it's it's just as much to do with the individual as it is to do with the business. In fact, I think the execution of any strategy is much more important than the strategy itself, so it comes down more to the individual than the business.
Just to follow on to that point, so we're in the tech space, so results come after you do a lot of the work, as opposed to up front. Would you recommend that we hold off until we get more results? Because obviously, if you're getting a sizable amount of cash, you can see that you've got a lot more money to play with for marketing campaigns and things like that.
Again, it's horses for courses, but my general rule is do it in stages. So get a little proof of concept and move to the next stage and do it, as opposed to the big bang, like where you just throw tons of raise money or use your own money and throw tons of money at it, because when you go down that strategy, sometimes it works, but there's a lot of wasted money. Having said that, a client I met this morning is going down the big bang strategy. They've got no revenue. They've signed up 5 or 6 different memorandums of understanding with fairly big clients, and for them speed to market is really important, and sometimes it is for technology. So again, there's no right path, but I'm always wary of people raising a lot of money and spending it quickly.
But from an investor's point of view, do they see that bootstrapping longer is more attractive, or does it really matter?
Investors like to see founders go through some pain, as a rule. That's my experience. But they also want to see them be successful. Again, there's no right answer there. It goes back to the opportunity. How quickly do you need to make the opportunity work? How much access to capital do you have? It's a balance. It's always a juggling act.
Yeah, but I would have thought, as a general proposition, you would want to delay selling equity in your business for as long as you can.
Yeah.
Because obviously once it's sold, that's a perpetual, basically. If you give away 20% of your business, that's in perpetuity. If the business takes off, you've got to buy it back at the higher valuation. So as a general rule, I would have thought if you can delay it, that's better. Obviously, debt capital is cheaper if you're paying someone 5%, even 15%. That is cheaper than giving away your business, but obviously, it's case by case, and there probably comes a point where you have to give away some of your equity to get funded. But if you can delay that, I think as a general rule, that's probably better.
You have a question?
Yeah, I do. When it comes to innovation-oriented businesses, there's often a perception that the only business risk that's worth taking is one that is going to be successful. But innovation inevitably involves fast failure. How do investors feel about the speed of failure? So the speed to fail so that they can re-innovate and redevelop and redesign and create something new. How do investors feel about failure?
If you learn from it, they're okay with it. Invariably when you start a new bit, particularly for startups, you can have the best plan in the world, but it never pans out that way. And it's about fast reaction time. And investors actually take confidence from something, well, hopefully 50% plus works, but the bits that don't, if as the founder you react quickly and calibrate, they see that as a good thing.
Just continuing on from that one, we've seen a lot of innovations that have been around a long time, and therefore are they still really innovations? And the issue they have from an investment point of view is they start to get smelly after a while. Like the whole market is not that big in Australia, so if you shop a deal around for 10 years, chances are by year 10 you probably should have given up at some point.
Did you say year 10?
Well, I was thinking about one client in particular.
Probably earlier.
Yeah, I don't know why, but some people just keep pushing it rather than being a market-led innovation. They think that if I just had that bit more money, or if I just did it differently, it would actually work. But often that's really not the case. They've started it on the wrong premise. And I'm talking about large-scale innovations like new ways of managing engine performance and stuff like that, which are sort of embedded systemic technologies.
You're just leading on that. I see a lot of inventors come to us wanting to claim grants, and when you go through their projects, they've been doing the same thing for 10 years. They've had half a dozen great capital raises thrown at them, and they've knocked back every one because they always thought they could get a better deal. The invention works, it's proven technology, but they just haven't been able to do a deal. And like Marcus just said, the whole project's got smelly and no one wants to know about it anymore. Because they realise that they can't work with the inventor. He should have passed it on to someone to do the business deal for him.
I've come across a couple of those in the last 6 months. Like innovations that could be worth billions, but they've been out there for too long and the individual's not the right guy.
Exactly. It happens all the time.